What's going on, everybody? It's Chris from Profoto, and today we're going to be doing the practical portion of what we talked about last week, where we were comparing the flash pulses of a high-speed sync or a light and high-speed sync versus the flash pulse of something in freeze mode, and we talked about some pitfalls. So we'll go over that really quickly. I'm not going to bring up the iPad and worry about showing you the actual waveforms because you can always go back and check that stuff out. We beat that horse pretty dead last week. But what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit about what they do, but I'm going to show you what they do as well and how you can expect your flash to form or perform when you're doing these tasks. So what we talked about with freeze mode. So a freeze mode is a flash pulse that's been truncated. So what you're doing is you're chopping off the back end of the flash. You're losing a little bit of color there as well, which is in your warmer tones, which is why things in freeze mode tend to shift blue. So that's going to be one of the downsides to freeze mode, is the fact that you are going to lose a little bit of those warm tones. But the upside is if the mission critical, or if the thing you're trying to do is stop action, you can always fix a little bit of coolness inside Photoshop, or you can white balance that out before you even start shooting. So you can go that route. The other thing that you might run into in trying to stop action is if you are trying to do it outside, depending on the flash that you're using and the durations that that flash work at, you may have some trouble battling the ambient. So, you know, it's kind of a give and take thing. Whereas if you go the high-speed sync route, you're going to be able to obviously shoot at much faster shutter speeds, but what you're doing is you're now working with much longer flash durations, because normally when a flash fires, you're going to have the shutter open, flash fires, closes. Whereas when you've gone past your sync speed, the second shutter starts to close before your first flash even begins to fire. So what high-speed sync is going to do is at the moment that that first shutter starts to open, the light's going to turn on and start pulsing really rapidly. That way, as it moves across the focal plane, or across the focal plane moves across your sensor, you illuminate the whole thing. Cool. Downside, it's a longer flash duration, and depending on how fast something's moving, you can get blur. You also aren't going to have the ability to pulse at as high a rate as you would if you were using freeze mode. So, and I'm going to show you all that stuff. I'm going to shut my mouth up here in just a second. We're going to set up, just so you know what we're working with as far as the setup. I have a Profoto D2 1000 on this side right here with an RFI 1x4 strip box on it to rim out this side. Also, this has an egg crate on it. On this side, I have a B10 Plus, so 500 watt unit with a 1x3 OCF strip box on it. So we're going to be rim lighting the glass from each side. We're going to shoot some pulses in freeze mode first. That way you can see how fast it works, how quick it can actually stop that action. Then we're going to jump over into we're going to jump over into high-speed sync and show you how that flash pulse is going to change. We're going to see what we can stop and what we can't stop, because that's just what we're going to do. And then we're also going to talk about some of the pitfalls. I'm going to show you what happens if you leave your camera in TTL mode while you're trying to do something, while you're trying to do bursts of shots, and show you exactly why you want to make sure that you're you're in manual mode when you have to actually burst your camera and your flash. So, like I said, 1x4 on a D2 1000, B2 or B10 with a 1x3. I've got my air remote on top of my camera. Camera-wise, if anyone wonders, I'm shooting a Fuji X-T3 with the 80mm macro lens on it. Really great lens. And then my camera settings: f8, 250 of a second, ISO 400. The reason I went up a little bit in my ISO is because I want to try to work at lower shutter or lower flash powers, because the lower the flash power, the faster your flash duration is going to become. So that way I could still work at f8 with my macro lens, get some more stuff in focus, and be at 250th of a second. So 250th of a second, f8, 400 ISO, super clean stuff. And we're going to go there. So what we're going to be doing is we're just going to, a really simple splash test. So we're going to be dropping grapes into a sparkling water, and we're going to be working on all the actual splash, capturing the splash itself, capturing the grape moving through the water and the little trails it makes as the air is trying to escape the water. So it should be really, really fun. If you have any questions about anything, let us know. I'm going to be answering. Let's see what you guys are. What's up, Minnesota in the house? What's up, Dan? Hey, everybody. What's up? Hey. Cool. Sweet. So let's do it. We're going to go and start rocking some grapes. You ready to go, Caitlin?
I'm ready.
Cool.
Yeah,
Caitlin's going to be the resident grape dropper.
Can you drop your question thing or open it so it's...
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. So it's just...
There we go.
There we go. So we got capture one up, shooting into capture one if anyone wonders what we're tethering with. So do we want to throw up a picture-in-picture maybe, just so they can at least see what we're doing?
Have it
Oh, she's
really
way ahead of me.
Very tiny.
She's way ahead of me. That's why they call them the better half.
True.
Much better. Cool. So let's slide that glass over just a little bit this way, a little bit more right there. Perfect. Cool. So we're centered up there. Let's make sure we've got focus. Excellent. Cool. So just so you know, flash power wise, here I'll take a test shot. We've already kind of locked in the flash power, but just so you can kind of see what we're working with. This is with nothing happening. You can already tell that we're in a burst mode, so that was really, really fast. So on the D2, we're working at a flash power of 1.8, which means we should be probably at a flash power of 1 on the B10, correct? No, 2.8. That's right, because 1,000 watt, 500 watt. I got that backwards. So the reason we're at 1.8 on the 1,000 watt is because it's got one more stop of light than the 500 does. So that's why there's one stop difference. So 1.8, 2.8. 2 on a B10 and a B10 Plus is like your fastest flash duration, so 2.8 should be really, really good. And then the lower you can get a D2, the better. They just scream. So these flash durations should be really, really high. In the TO5 range, we're probably talking 50 thousandths of a second, so way faster than a shutter is going to go. So we're going to do this right now. You ready to rock, Kate?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this is freeze mode with 2 flashes, low power, so we should be pretty fast. And we're going to drop the grapes in 3, 2, 1. Cool. So, like I said, the upside to being able to use freeze mode is that you're going to be able to burst like that. So, and especially once you start using these flashes at a lower power setting, the recycle speed is ridiculous. So, if the camera could do it, you'd be able to easily pulse 30 frames a second with these guys, especially around the power settings that they're at right now. So my camera, I think my camera does like 8 frames a second. It's not the fastest camera on the block, but it gets the job done. So let's see what we're looking like here on some of these splashes. Oh, that's kind of cool. So so here's the grapes kind of falling in. You can see that I'm just gonna wait for this to clear up a little bit, but we're pretty sharp on all that stuff. Super fast flash duration, so it's able to stop some of that. Really, really pretty stuff. Really, really cool. Let's go right here to something with a little more splash. So this is really, really nice stuff. So the freeze mode is really fast, has no problem stopping that action. Once again, like I said, in TO5 numbers, we're easily working up in the 50 thousandth of a second range. T1, we're probably in the 19,000 range. So we're doing pretty good. So it's really fast. So, but that's one of the nice things is that in the freeze mode, because we can pulse that, I was able to capture a lot of different frames to get something, that I wanted. I'm not a professional splash photographer by any means, so this is not, I'm not going to tell you how to, light this way and do this that way, because this is not my forte, but this is a really, really good way of showing you the differences between the different types of flash pulses. So for this next shot, we're going to flip into high-speed sync. So we're going to try to go the opposite route. I'm going to take my camera up to 1/8,000th of a second. I'm going to try to do what I can to keep the power level relatively low just to see how much we can pulse. But you're going to find that just because the flash has to be managed a certain way, that we're not going to get that frame rate that we would get out of freeze mode. So this is, like I said before, this is where freeze mode has that distinct advantage over high-speed sync. But we're going to see how much we can stop it with 1/8,000th of a second. So let's do that. We're going to switch the camera up now to 1/8,000th of a second on my shutter speed. I'm going to take a TTL shot. I'm probably going to have to change out my batteries in my air remote, apparently. So at let's see what that shot looked like. Was that really dark? That looks pretty dark. So let's go, f8's not going to be really, really happy. So let's see what happens at 2.8. Is it still really mad? TTL mode. Oh, I didn't actually put my camera into high. I have to put my trigger into high-speed sync. Yeah, let's see. There we go. So that's high-speed sync. That's a high-speed sync exposure, just so you know power-wise. We're at full power on these flashes. So the chances of us getting any type of a frame rate are not great. Yeah, we're at full power on both of them. I can honestly, looking at the exposure, I can bring it back a little bit, which is
Did you give them the power levels on your D2 and B10?
I did. So on the freeze mode shots, on the B10, so let me go back up so you can see the shot. On the freeze mode shot here, let's get the little curly one because I think that's kind of cool. So the freeze mode shot, your B10 plus is at a power level of 1.8, and our, I keep doing this. The B10 plus was a power level of 2.8, and the D2 1000 was at a power level of 1.8. So because they're a stop different, they're going to be a stop different. So that was the power levels there. So now just with a test shot at f8, 1/8,000th of a second, and my ISO still at 400, we're at power level of 10 on both of these things. It's pumping really hard, but what I can tell by looking at this exposure is that I can bring that back. I can probably gain back about a stop, maybe a stop and a half. Let's see what that looks like. And then that way maybe we'll get a little bit more pulsing out of it, but my guess is probably not, just due to the fact that that's the way that high-speed sync is managed. Let's see. Oh, so fast. So just waiting to see this load. That looks pretty good. When it has a hard time loading the pulse, sometimes you'll get jumpiness in the actual exposure. But let's see what happens. So you can see the difference right here between these two shots. Because it wasn't able to quite, actually you can kind of see it between all three. Because it wasn't able to manage the pulse super efficient, you can see that the exposure starts to drop between the two, or between the three. So from 1 to 2, not as much, but you can see, especially right here on, if you look around right here, the D2 looks like it actually starts to drop a little bit. And then whenever you go to this one, overall, it comes down. So I still think a lot of it is the D2 over here on this, but we're gonna give it a whirl. I think the exposure looks pretty nice. I'm gonna try dialing it back half a stop more just to see where we're at. It's so many flash pulses. Yeah, so let's go there. So now, and once again, it drops, the two exposures drop a little bit. So cool. So let's see, power level wise now, just so you know where we're living, 8.5 on both, 8.5 on both of them. So you want to try stopping this action with high-speed sync? Let's do it. So camera settings again, 8,000th of a second on the camera, f8, ISO 400, we're at 8.5 power on both of these. When you switch into high-speed sync mode, the camera or the air remote automatically tells the flashes, get out of freeze mode. They're competing technologies, so high-speed sync is going to win that battle. So you can't be in both freeze mode and high-speed sync at the same time. So as soon as you tell that air remote, hey, I'm going into high-speed sync mode, it kicks the flashes out of it. So just remember that. So here we go. This is not going to pulse as many times, so we'll see what happens. 3, 2, 1.
Totally missed.
So it tried to pulse. It tried to pulse at the speed. You're going to see a significant drop in exposure because the flash just couldn't recycle fast enough. So, or at least on the last couple shots that I saw, it started getting way darker. Yeah, you can see the darkness starting to trail. So we were able to keep the pulse going, but because of the way that power's managed, it doesn't have enough time to recycle because it's such a long flash duration. So, and obviously we're working at higher powers. I might boost the ISO and just see what we can do. If with a boosted ISO and lower power levels, if high-speed sync is fine, we are going to check that out. But you can see as they're falling and the pulse starts, you can already see it start to dim, dim, dimmer, dimmer, dimmer. Glass starting to rock over on the side. We're definitely going to break this glass before this is over. So, but let's see as far as like the actual it's not the, I mean, it's got some sharp stuff. It's just not the sharpest thing in the world in comparison to the freeze mode shot. Let's see if we can get something else. I mean, this stuff's relatively tight. That's kind of sharp. So you are able to freeze some stuff. 8,000 is fast. You are able to stop some action. Freeze mode is just faster. It just is. So I'm gonna bump the ISO a little bit so we can bring back so we can bring that power down a little bit more and see what happens. So I'm at ISO 400. Let's see what happens if I go to ISO. Let's go to 1600. Yeah, I'm just gonna go to ISO 1600 first. Let's go to ISO 1600, and so I went 400, 800, 1600. So that's 2 stops. I can come down. Let's see what happens with 2 stops if we're similar. I'm just going to go a single shot just so I don't have to keep pulsing really fast. So 3, 2, 1. No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so power-wise now, just so you know, because I went up to ISO 1600, 6.5 on both. So we have a little more latitude to play with. So I'm going to put it back into continuous high.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yep. We're ready this time. 3, 2, 1. Cool. So we had a little bit more power to play with, or a little more speed to play with as far as recycle goes. So we'll see what happens with the actual exposure itself. It looks like it's hanging tight a little bit better. So let's see. Let's get back up here. So far, between what I'm seeing, I'm not seeing, I saw a little bit of an exposure dip there, a little bit of an exposure dip, a little bit more. Yeah, so the exposure does start to dip. It just, once again, it's going to be a byproduct of trying to manage that flash pulse. So are you able to stop some action at 8,000 of a second? Yeah, definitely. So you have that ability. So where you're going to find you have to walk the line, especially if you're doing outside stuff and you're trying to control that ambient with your shutter speed as well as stop some action, you're going to kind of be walking the line of not necessarily having the ability to just pulse, whereas it's going to be more of a timing thing. You're going to have to work on your timing with your subject, which that's not a bad thing, but you're not going to have as many options to just kind of spray the shutter and hope you get the position of what it is you're trying to capture. So those are going to be your big differences. So let's see if we can do like an A/B of a freeze mode shot and a freeze mode and a high-speed sync shot. You can also tell the color difference because we are back into a normal flash pulse. You're getting your warmer tones are starting to come back in. So you can see, once again, this is where you're going to have a little bit more of that cool shift in freeze mode, whereas right here, you're going to be working with your normal tones, and so some of those warmer tones are going to start to come back in. Kind of cool. Action stoppage-wise, I mean, the freeze mode stuff is pretty tight. It's pretty sharp. I mean, the stuff that you see back there, that's just, it's further back in the shot, so it's just a little out of focus. That's not motion blur, that's just not focused. All of this stuff looks great. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And this is your freeze mode shot. Once again, you can tell because it's a little bluer. So your high-speed sync shot, still pretty tight, not bad. It's not bad. So you can stop action with both modes. It just depends on what is more important to you in doing that. So like if you're in a place where you just absolutely need to control the ambient and the motion isn't insanely fast, you could stop it with high-speed sync. If you're in a spot where you're outside and you need to stop action and you need to control the ambient, you can do it with high-speed sync. So what you're going to give up, once again, is just the ability to burst. So let's see if you guys have any questions. You want to flip back over to me before this question thing pops up? Cool. Bop. So here we go. Hey, hey everybody. Bunch of hays. Hi. Do I need some special adjustments on the camera to work just in freeze mode like I do in high-speed sync above 1/250th? No. So freeze mode is going to be a function inside the flash itself. So if you're using a B10 or a B10 Plus, you can access that from the back of the flash itself, or you can access that through the Profoto app. You have the ability to change that. It's just literally an option that says freeze and a little button. You click it, it says normal or freeze. And once again, when you go into high-speed sync, the flash will automatically be kicked out of freeze mode because they're competing technologies, but you would select freeze in your flash. So I know that the B1s of the newer flashes that people are using a lot of, besides like our freeze packs like the Pro 6, Pro 7, Pro 8, and then Pro 10, the B1, B1X, B2, B10s, the D2s all have a freeze mode. The D1's not really fast enough to go into freeze mode. It's not. I wouldn't necessarily use it to try to stop any type of action. You're obviously not going to have high-speed sync with the D1 because it's not a TTL-enabled flash. So there's that. So yeah, pretty simple stuff. So a lot of our newer stuff, the things that people are going to, the A series don't have a freeze mode, but they're relatively fast. So you should be able to stop some action with the A series, no problem. The thing that you're going to be walking the line with the A1 is power. Power to illuminate what you want, especially if you're using high-speed sync mode. Uh-oh.
I love John Faison.
Uh-oh. What did he say? Oh, he said, hey. Oh, did I miss something else? Oh, there he is. Freeze mode sounds like an awesome dance squad that battles around Atlanta pop lock. And well, I guess I'm going to have to actually start that dance squad, John. Cool. Let's see. How's the color shift with HSS compared to freeze mode? So if you look at these two, you can see. So here's your freeze mode. You can see it's a lot cooler than your HSS, which is going to still maintain the back end of that flash pulse. So you're not losing those warmer tones. So that's a plus, especially if the action that you're trying to stop isn't that fast. Once again, though, you can 100% white balance this out. You could use a gray card and white balance out the cool tones and be good to go. So you could do it with a custom white balance in your camera. You could shoot a gray card and obviously custom white balance it right here inside your editing software. So whatever it is that you need to do to balance out, you can do that. The one thing that you need to make sure of if you have lights with freeze mode and you've been playing with freeze mode is that all of your lights have to be in freeze mode, or take all of your lights out of freeze mode, because the thing that would really, really stink is if you have, you know, a main on freeze mode, and I mean, maybe this is the look you're going for. I don't think it's drastic enough to make it look like it's on purpose, but maybe it is. But if you had your main light in freeze mode and your fill light on normal mode, your main's going to be colder. It just is. Especially if you're starting to work at lower power levels, it's really going to be fast flash duration. It's just really going to be truncating the back end of that flash pulse. So if you're working with your flashes at a higher output, also, it's probably not the best thing to work in freeze mode, because your flash durations aren't such that you're really going to stop anything at like 9 and 10. So it's better just to make sure you're in normal mode to maintain color spectrum if you have to work at higher powers. If you need, like I said, if it's mission critical to stop that action, then you're going to want to be in freeze mode and you're going to want to work at lower powers. So let's see. Did you throw my computer back up there while I was just showing them the difference between?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure. So I'm going to bring up some more questions.
Here.
Oh, gotcha. Can you show us how to put a B10 Plus into freeze mode, or is there a written tutorial somewhere? Yeah, I mean, I can show you how to do it. It's really, really simple. Here, since this is battery powered, this will be the easiest one. Let's see. So I'm going to try to get to the tight shot and see if they can see it. Is this in the?
Great.
All right, cool. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to tap the center button, navigate to flash mode. You can see it's in freeze right now, and you literally just click the center button in your normal mode. Normal and freeze. That simple. I will say though, if I hey Caitlin, could you do me a favor?
Sure.
This should, in theory, because it does it with the B1, I have never really checked it with this, but if Caitlin goes over and squeezes the trigger on my camera, the freeze should disappear. So let's see, make sure that it's still there. So this little block right here says freeze, squeeze the trigger. Yep, so see, high-speed sync deactivates freeze mode. So while high S is up here in the corner, so squeeze it again. Cool, so it says high S up here letting you know you're in high speed sync mode. When it stops being in high speed, it'll flip back over to freeze mode. So As soon as you take another shot, it'll flip back to high-speed sync and deactivate freeze. So just so you know, it'll automatically switch that on high-speed sync. So the B1 used to not do it, even though they competed anyways. Like, it didn't automatically switch, and we fixed that with a firmware update, just so it didn't always confuse people that they were able to be in both. So let's see. Hey. What's the mode on camera if you are in freeze mode? Mode on the camera is just anything below your sync speed. So on my Fuji X-T3, the fastest shutter speed that I can get up to before I start getting the black line or having to switch into high-speed sync is 1/250th of a second. So you want to stay at whatever your sync speed is and below. You can, if you are in a place of where the light is totally controlled, I'm clearly not because I have a whole bunch of windows and video lights and stuff, but if you're in a place where the light is completely controlled and blacked out, you could put your camera in bulb mode and hold a 30-second exposure and take one flash, and it will stop the action just as much as the action would be stopped at 250th of a second. Because when you're in freeze mode, you're using your flash as your shutter. That's the thing stopping the action, not your shutter. So the flash is going to be on a much smaller amount of time than your shutter can even imagine being on. So think of that when you're in freeze mode, your flash is your shutter. So you just want to make sure that you're at your max sync speed or below before you have to go into high-speed sync. So thanks, everybody. What's up? And before we sign off, you know what I was going to do? I was going to show you what happens when you try to pulse in TTL mode. And that way you can also see why you should do this in manual mode, because it's bad, and it's really laggy, and it bounces a lot. We're going to flip back into freeze mode for this, just so we can get more pulses out of it. But you can see it trying to pulse a high-speed sync burst. Yeah, I'm going to need you to drop some more grapes. I'm going to need your grape dropping skills. So let's go back to 250th of a second. Can you guys see that? Oh, you can't. Let me go right here to my camera settings so you can see that. There. So now you can see my camera settings over here as I'm making these adjustments. Go back to 400. And I can actually, I remember what these are set at. So once again, this is at 2.8. Yeah. Throw up the computer. 2.8 and 1.8 on the B10. Cool. So power set. It's the exact same setup that we were on when we were in when we were using freeze mode earlier. So, but this time I'm going to stay in TTL mode. Here's one TTL shot, just so you can see. It's probably going to overexpose it, so I want to see if I need to flash exposure compensate. It did. So I'm going to exposure compensate this down some. What does that D2 say?
Oh no!
It says shot ruined now.
5.7.
5.7. So I need to come down 3. Let's go down 2 stops to flash exposure compensation, because this way we'll be in the ballpark of where we were. So 2 stops down. Let's see. Pop. That's pretty good. Yeah, cool. So this TTL mode, 2 stops down on my flash exposure compensation, so I can control that, which is nice. I can't control people knocking my flash around. I got to get better help. All right, here we go. TTL mode. So you're going to see it not be able to shoot as much. Just pay attention to that. 3, 2, 1. So you see that? We lost any opportunity to pulse at all, because, and the downside is if something gets introduced into the frame like it absolutely did. So one, we've dropped grapes into this shot, correct? So when you drop the grapes into the shot, it goes from not having anything there to then a whole, like the water splashes, so it starts to get bigger in the frame, and the TTL is trying to drop that way down. So, I mean, it's still in freeze mode, and we're still at really low powers. So you're able to stop the action, but the downside is you're missing so much stuff in between the shot when you're in TTL mode that, you know, there could have been a way better moment just milliseconds before that, and I missed it because TTL is trying to pre-flash, expose properly, and then expose with a normal flash. So when you're doing this stuff, when you're doing anything with bursts, go to manual mode. It will save your life. I've had this happen to me. The only reason I even know to talk about this is because this has happened to me before in doing some stuff. I'm like, why can't I stop this action? Pre-flashes. So just if you're trying to stop that action, manual mode, always manual mode. And then you can decide from there whether what you're doing is better for freeze mode or is better for high-speed sync. Let's see if you guys have any more questions before I sign off. I'm also on the sign off right before we go. I'm going to throw up the shot in high-speed sync mode, and I'm going to throw up the shot in in freeze mode once again, just so we can. I just got to find it really fast.
Stefan says, please do 100 burpees.
100 burpees. Yes, 100 burpees right now, and then I can throw up that as well. But that won't be photo related. So, let's see. Stefan, goon. So, hey everybody, hey. Let's see. Cool, just hey, no other questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this up then in the meantime, so you can see the difference on the screen. So one more time, color shift difference, freeze mode on the left, high speed sync on the right. So obviously a little bit cooler over here, warmer tones over here because you're keeping more of that flash together. So you can see that at the end. So thank you all so much for coming and kicking it with me. This was really fun. This was the part 2 of what we talked about last week, where we really dove into the nitty gritty of why this is doing what it's doing. So I drew actual flash pulses. I showed you how they're chopped and how things are managed. I talked about the pitfalls. We talked about those today as well, but we did it practically too. So you could actually see it in action. It's really fun stuff. So if you have any other suggestions of things that you want to see, let me know. I do these things for you. So if there's a modifier that you want to see, if there's a technique that you want to see, if there's anything that you want us to cover, let us know, and we will absolutely do it. This is fun, and it's supposed to hopefully give you guys a ton of value because I like doing this with you. So if there's something I don't know, I'll look into it, or we'll just explore it together. I have no problem looking like a goon in front of you guys. So if I'm foolish, whatever. I'm not going to do 100 burpees, so you can get over that right now, Stefan. But that's just because I'm chubby. So in the meantime, have an awesome weekend. We will see you next week. I'm just going to double check that I have no questions. Hey. Cool. Sweet. So thank you all so much. In the meantime, if you have any questions about any of the stuff that we used, or you just want some more information on it, you can check the link in the description. I also pinned the links in the top of the comment section, just so it's easy to get to. Next week, we have another Facebook Live, but we also have an event with Mira and Thilda, which is going to be dope. I'll be hosting it, some Q&A stuff, so if you want to ask them any questions, we're showing a video of their shoot, and so if you want any specifics on their process or just kind of what they love to do or how they like to shoot or gear stuff and why they use it, come check it out. It'll be fun. I'll be back with another Facebook Live, and also on Tuesday, we have our Instagram Q&A. So if you want to ask any specific Profoto questions, if you have any suggestions about things you'd like to see, come hit me up there too. See you on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Am I live? I think I'm live like 3 days in a row. So come see me. In the meantime, have an awesome weekend. Peace out, everybody.